The family is facing challenges in a changing world that needs a strong advocate. Mama E has been a trusted voice for many years, bringing wisdom and understanding to the dynamics of relationships and the joys of marriage. Join us and experience the simple and practical advice that can help improve your relationships and marriages with Mama E.
Get ready for an exciting and informative show about marriage that tackles some edgy topics.
Hi, everybody. It's Mama E again. Thank you again for joining us in our discussion. If you're new to the telecast, just know that for over 20, going on 25 years now, my assignment, my mission has been to try to encourage you to work towards having a good marriage. I made a few notes, and I hope that I can leave something with you today that will, again, encourage you. I think we have accepted the fact that, or the belief that our marriages cannot be healthy and happy. We settle for roommate status, or we just give up completely. So the assignment that I've been given is just to say to you that it is indeed possible. My interest in marriage comes from what I think is a ministry assignment from God. Now, I define ministry as meeting needs. It's clear that many people have strong desires to help people in different ways, be it homelessness, substance abuse, crime against children, health and wellness, or any other issues which affect mankind. So it is with my aspirations to see healthy marriages. I'm of the opinion then that God cares about marriages and families, that it was really his idea. I often say that we sometimes act like we thought of everything, but this was developed by God for his people. So then he had a plan, and he still does, for what families ought to look like. I see it like this, that God was, in fact, the inventor of a product, and he knows why he made the product and what it will take to keep it operating as intended. That's why this telecast exists. My goal is to provide viewers with information which could be beneficial to those who believe that whole, healthy, and happy relationships are possible. As I said, many of us have given up, but just like God has given us the wherewithal, the what it would take to have healthy bodies, to have healthy finances, all of the things that he has designed for us. Marriage and healthy families is no different. I've got over 50 years of marriage under my belt, and I hope to share much of what I have learned. I will share the positive and the negative, the spiritual and the natural, the happy and the sad. You know, sometimes we try to pretend, or at least to indicate, that everything that has transpired in our lives has been good and very good. Well, I'm not sure that that's true. And if you've had that experience, God bless you. But the fact that he has given us a way out, the fact that he has shown us in his word how we can do it better, then my suggestion is that we take it from him. Okay? The inventor, the manufacturer, let's take his advice on how we can have healthy, happy marriages. I thought today then that we would discuss what couples should know about each other before they tie the knot. Many of us, me included, did not have any marriage training before we said I do. Even those of us who were raised in church, many people from my generation, we went to church, we went to Bible study, we went to Sunday school, We attended Vacation Bible School, and there were any number of classes and resources that were made available to us, but I don't recall any of them being resources on how to be a good husband, resources on how to be a godly wife. So then, it's good, I guess, that we were taught how to get to heaven. But I'm convinced that for whatever amount of time God gives us on earth, that it is His will that we have the best that we can have on earth. So we're going to work on getting to heaven for sure, but some of us are living in earthly hell. So that my suggestion then is that we take advantage of whatever resources are available to us so that we can have heaven on earth. When I first started studying what God would say to me about my own marriage, I thought today that we would discuss some of those things that couples need to know about each other before we say I do. I wanted to share just a few of the resources that I have found helpful. As I said, of course, we've got the Word of God, but in addition to that, when we have illnesses, certainly we believe that God can heal us, but God has also given information to medical science so that they can also help us. So I guess what I'm saying is let's use every resource possible so that we can have the kind of lives that God intends for us to have. One of those resources is a book called 1001 Questions to Ask Before You Get Married. This is by Monica Mendez Lee, I believe it's how it's pronounced. But we're going to share a little bit of information that I've taken from there. In addition to that, in my marriage ministry Sunday school class from years ago, we use these two workbooks. One is called Before You Say I Do. And then the second one, also written by H. Norman Wright, is called After You Say I Do. That means for those of us who didn't get it before, that it's not too late. It's too late if we choose not to invest the time and energy into studying what God would have to say before or after we say I do. So regardless as to whatever your reasons are for getting married, we get married for different reasons. Sometimes we get married because we're just madly in love. The Cupid has flown. He shot his arrow. You feel butterflies whenever you even think about your beloved. Most of you can remember, if you've ever been in love, how you couldn't hang up the phone. He said, "No, you hang up," and you said, "No, you hang up." That was that feeling of butterflies, that all of it said to me that I'm going to be happy from now on. If I can just say hello, if I can just see his face, and whatever the reasons were, some people got married because they couldn't wait to leave their parents' home. There were people who got married because they were afraid of being alone, that they were never going to find anybody to share their life with. And so they got married without really putting all of the energy into preparing for what could be a good marriage. I want, though, to make a recommendation that no matter what your original reason was for getting married, that you spend some time, particularly if it's pre-marriage. If you haven't said I do yet, if you haven't stood in front of the pastor yet, if you haven't been down to the courthouse yet, can I just suggest that you take some time to get to know each other? How do you do that? How do we get to know each other? We need to talk. And the books that I just recommended give us some topics, some subjects that we can use then to talk about, so that we have answers before we get married. You know, it would be unfortunate if we didn't find out vital things about our spouse until after we were married. Maybe that's the cause for so many divorces. Maybe it's because we didn't really know. Maybe we saw things. Maybe we heard things, but we thought, I can handle it. Or the other mistake we make is when we say, yeah, I know he doesn't put his socks in the hamper, but he'll change. Or even more serious, the times when we feel that he's not saved, he is not a born again believer, but he goes to church. And then down the road, after we say I do, you realize that his relationship with Christ is not on the same level with yours, and therefore problems arise. Let's just talk about a few of the things that I recommend that you share before you say I do, if at all possible. Grab a pencil real quick. I should have told you to get one first because I want to give you some topics for discussion. The next time you and your spouse, you and your significant other are together, I want to have a source of conversation for you so that you are not just talking about the surface level stuff. If we're going to prepare to be together till death do us part, what are you going to talk about for the next 30, 40, 50 years? Okay, one of the suggestions that I found that should be talked about is your childhood. Now, let me be careful that I'm not suggesting that you talk about the image that you want to portray. I'm suggesting that you don't make up, that your family lived in a castle, that you always traveled to Spain every summer, you went to private school, mom always bought our clothes from XYZ store. So many times when we meet someone, we want to portray an image. I'm here to say that images, lies, if you will, are so hard to keep up with. So you've got to remember now, where was it you told him that you went to school? And where was it again that you spent all of your summer vacations? You want to be careful that truth comes out. The fact that your upbringing, your childhood might be different from the person that you've met, it's still better that we talk about it now as opposed to springing on them in the future what we want them to think about us. When we're also thinking about our childhoods, were there any hurtful or disappointing experiences? I won't do it today because I'm going to keep on, but as I share parts of my testimony, there were things that I brought with me from my childhood in terms of how my parents' marriage looked to me. All of it's based on what we perceive. But I brought things into my marriage because I didn't like what I saw in this. So I want to make sure that that never happens to me. We'll talk about it later, but I think I've said enough for you to now look at what you brought into your relationship. And did you bring hurt and disappointment? And so you've decided how you're going to handle that in your marriage? Just think about it. What did you enjoy doing as a child? What school activities did you participate in? What was your favorite grade level and why? You skip over things because you don't see them as important. But then when you have children, are you going to then try to require that they finish your dreams? You always wanted to be a majorette and you couldn't. You wanted to be in the band and your parents didn't allow you to. And so now you're either going to go too far with your children or you're going to be requiring too much of them. In other words, they have to give up their childhood because of yours. When we look at the things that we expect of our marriages and what we're hoping that our marriage is going to be, what we want to make sure is that we have talked about, we have given real thought to what our childhood was like. All right, in addition, what was your history? What's your birth order? There are 5 children in my family, and I'm kind of in the middle. I'm the second one, and then there were 2 other girls under me, and then a brother. But I found some things when I started reading about birth order. Some things, if you read it, you'll find why you act a certain way. You know, I often say that I tried to be the peace giver, the peacemaker, and I tried as a child and also as an adult. You know, I wanted people to like me. And so when I got married, I just sometimes didn't talk about things that I should have because I'm the peacemaker. So think about your birth order. Look it up and just see if you're the oldest child, what are you capable of being? How do you act? If you're the baby, are you spoiled? A lot of times we assume that, but birth order, I think, is important. Parents who lived in your household, were you the child of a single parent or in a single parent household? A lot of times I found that we bring with us things that we observed as children. So that sometimes women can be assertive, can sometimes be bossy, controlling. Sometimes that happens because we saw our mother have to handle everything in the house. There was no man in the house to cut the grass, to make sure that there was enough money there. And so mom had to work 2 or 3 jobs. And none of what I'm saying, please understand, is not to be critical. I'm just trying to give examples of how we all live differently. Okay? So then sometimes we take what we saw as our parents' roles and responsibilities and we bring them into our marriage. So then if we get married and you think my husband's going to always do XYZ because my daddy did that, or I won't ask my husband to do anything because I don't need a man. All of those things very often come from what we saw, what we witnessed, what we viewed as children. Another thing in your history that I think merits discussion is your spiritual or religious experiences, church activities, the kinds of things that we were raised in a very church active home. So then that means all of the things that were going on in church, for the most part, we participated. I don't say that to mean that I resented it. I am so grateful for the upbringing. I'm so grateful that I was introduced to Christ at an early age. And that does not mean that I have been perfect. It does not mean that I always lived a life that was pleasing to him. But I just recognize that it could have been so much worse. And so the fact that my parents tried to instill in us those things that were going to help us live a life that was pleasing to God. Who were your close friends? Who were your family members that you were really close to? You know, I think everybody had a close auntie. I had an aunt that lived near us, and she was like second to my mom. You know, I had another aunt who was my father, sister. And so the things that we were able to glean from these favorite relatives all benefited us in different ways. You know, how many things that we learned to cook because Aunt so and so cooked it like that? You know, how many things that we learned about school and things that we participated in that our aunts and cousins participated in. All of those things are vital and they make you you. So when you start to think about yourself now, I hope that you'll go back through some of these questions that I'm giving you and see if you can answer them first. And then, of course, be able to spend some time with your significant other if you're not married, or with your spouse if you are. What makes you you? What do you enjoy doing? What are the things you like to do alone? And what things do you like to do with others? I love the water, whether it be the beach or a river or a lake. I find it so calming. You know, it's a wonderful way to talk to and hear from God. That's just one of those things that I love. You know, when my husband and I got married, we chose a place for our honeymoon that was surrounded by water. Many of the trips that we took for anniversary trips was Nassau and the Bahamas and Bermuda and where else did we? Hawaii. Those were all places. And because I liked it, I don't know that initially if it was something that he enjoyed, but he grew to, and we made it a couple's activity because we both learned to enjoy those things. Are there things that you like to do by yourself? You know, there are some of us who feel like we should always be with each other. I don't know if that's true, if it's accurate, or if it's good that you take no time to be alone with you. Just think about it. And at least whichever way you find happiness, whatever way really gives you contentment, at least your spouse needs to know. You know, I didn't start enjoying football until many, 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 many years into my marriage. And I just wonder, gosh, if I had just put a little effort into finding out, maybe I would have enjoyed it sooner. And that would have been one other thing that we could have done together. Okay, let's move on. Um, I had a conversation earlier today about my wake up schedule. And I go to bed very, very late, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Consequently, I do not wake up at 6. Now, let me just give you a byline. As a child, all of us were required to be up at 6. We took turns in terms of who was going to make breakfast. Somebody had to wash a load of clothes. All of those things were done early in the morning. And I don't think I ever really enjoyed that 6 o'clock stuff, you know, but I didn't have a choice when I was at home. I think that I subconsciously had a talk with the Lord. And I think I told him, if you let me get out of here, you and I won't talk at 6 a.m. ever again. So I'm one of the persons that you can count on to be up praying at midnight or after. I used to allow people to make me feel guilty because I'm not an early riser. I did. You remember I said I'm a peacemaker, and so I like to make sure everybody's happy. But when I recognized that trying to make myself be somebody else, trying to make myself please somebody else was not necessarily good for me. It did not feel good. And so I found myself saying, Lord, make me content with the person that you made me to be. And so now I don't justify or explain why I don't get up. Because, you know, I even had to, years ago, my mom used to call me early in the morning. I used to work a shift that was like 4 p.m. to 1 a.m. Consequently, after I got the kids off to school, I'd go back to bed. Well, people who get up at 6 by 9 think you ought to be up. And so I remember mom saying, Publix has tuna on sale. And I thought maybe we could run by there. And so what I said now is, if I were to call you 3 hours after you had gone to bed, then you wouldn't care about tuna or anything else that Publix had on sale. Those kinds of lessons were good for me. And I'm okay with being the Mama E God made me to be. I'm okay with being Estella, Stella, all of whom he has made me to be. I'm okay with that. So that when we start talking about the things that need to be discussed as we get to know each other, that perhaps might be something that at least we ought to know, so that if one of you is a day shift and one's a night shift, that you can at least give each other the respect, if you will, that you will love me enough to let me sleep, as opposed to requiring that I change to be somebody else. What's your favorite holiday? Are you a Thanksgiving person? Are you a Christmas person? Are you neither? My husband absolutely loved Christmas. And there were any number of Christmases that I wasn't jolly, I wasn't happy. I knew he was going to spend every dime, because he had to make sure that all the kids had everything they could possibly want. I did come to realize, though, after a while, that it wasn't worth the argument. It wasn't worth ruining Christmas for the whole family, because I was being a Scrooge. So that we learned how to satisfy each other's needs and appetites for certain things. As I got older, I found that I enjoyed Thanksgiving. There was something very family oriented about Thanksgiving. And so those are the kinds of things that, as you have your conversations with your husband or with your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you call it now, that these are things that we ought to know going into the relationship. Where do you want to live? Do you like big cities? Would you prefer a small town? Are there areas that you have visited that you think you could really live there? I went through a period after my husband and I were divorced, where I call it my 7 years of singleness. And that was 7 years before my husband and I remarried. But during that 7 years, my husband and I used to love to go to Hilton Head Island. And I actually went to Hilton Head and started looking for houses and condos, because that was one of the places that I had put pretty high on my list of where I would like to live. It didn't manifest. My husband and I got back together, and I never got to Hilton Head Island. But at least if you were to ask me, at least I had put enough thought into it that I could give you an answer. Then there's the tough stuff, the hard questions. What about political views? What about how many children are we going to have? When are we going to have them? Are we going to have them right after we get married? Are we going to give ourselves a couple of years before we have children? Am I going to go back to work after I have the baby? Am I going to stay home and you're going to work another job? Whatever it is, the discussion needs to be there. And that way we don't find out 10, 15 years down the road and then have to figure out why we've been miserable. What is your medical history? What are things that your parents might have experienced as they got older? Are there things that could be hereditary? I had surgery for 2 aneurysms. It's been several years and God has been good. It's a different story. But I found out during my searching of aneurysms that they can be hereditary. After I did some searching and recognized that several close relatives to me had either had aneurysms and survived or did not survive from an aneurysm. I then made sure that my children know everything that I know about my medical history and their father's medical history. We owe it to our families that they know the information that they might have to answer. You know, when you go to doctors, they usually give you a form for you to complete so that they know what to look for. Many times we keep things secret. I don't know why, you know, but I owe it to my children and my grandchildren so that they might know that this happened in my genealogy, you know, so that those are things that are important that we talk about. Here's a big one, money. We probably in the next session or so are going to spend some time dealing with finances, you know. What are the spending habits that you have or that is one person a spender and the other person is a saver? I recognize that there are things that we have done for so long, you know, and because you were single and you could make all decisions about your money, and then when you got married, you still consider it your money and his money. So then, if we've never talked about it, maybe we need to know how we feel about money. You know, because if we don't, I can guarantee you, you write it down that on this day, Mama E said it's going to come back up to bite you. You need to know what it is that you think, you feel about money. How are you going to use it? Are we going to buy a home? Are we going to rent? Are we going to live with someone else? Are we going to have a duplex and rent out part and live in part? Did we talk about any of that? Did we talk about what we are going to spend our money on? You know, I'm not sure that being accountable necessarily means getting permission, but at least we ought to know how much is coming in the house, how much has to go out of the house, and how are we going to meet those needs. Another point for you to use when you are having these discussions is who are the most important people in your life and why? Are there political persons who you know based on politics? Are there people who have influenced you like writers and celebrities? Now just be careful that you don't get wrapped up in what you think that other person is like. You know, sometimes we kind of assume that what we saw on TV about Denzel or what we saw on some newspaper about Beyonce and Jay-Z. And so we make a lot of times decisions on our lives based on what we think other people's lives have included. These are just a few of the topics that I really suggest that you spend time talking about. If you don't do it now, just recognize that you run the risk of talking about it later. And I don't know, could be too late. We'll take up here again next time. This has been Mama E, and we'll talk real soon.
Today's show was truly one of a kind, but it's still focused on addressing controversial topics to support the importance of marriage. If you have enjoyed similar programming, we kindly ask you to reach out to us through email, inbox messages, or phone calls. The Ministry of Mama E thrives thanks to partners and friends like yourself. We can't wait to see you again next week at the same time and on the same channel.
Let the church say amen.
K-Good Productions presents Gospel Fest 2023 featuring the Mighty Clouds of Joy. Saturday, November 18th at the Paxton Revival Center. Sing the Canton Spirituals. And the Swanee Quintet. Gospel Fest 2023, November 18th, 5 5 p.m. at the Paxton Revival Center, 5461 Commonwealth Avenue in Jacksonville. Tickets available at Eventbrite. For info, 904-813-0085.
Are you in search of a sanctuary for your precious little ones? Look no further. At Harvest Time Christian Academy, we offer the ideal haven. Our passionate team, comprised of both devoted educators and compassionate caregivers, is well-versed in both biblical teachings and academic excellence. From the tiniest cherubs to curious toddlers, we are here to deeply enrich your child's life. Reach out to us today for further details. Rest assured, we provide flexible pricing options and a daycare experience that is imbued with nothing but warmth and affection. Together, let's create a nurturing environment for your little miracles to thrive.
Are you feeling hopeless and stuck in a difficult situation? If so, I have a suggestion for you. Sometimes we need a bit of divine intervention to help us out. One way to seek divine intervention is through prayer. However, I understand that praying on your own can be challenging or overwhelming. That's why I want to introduce you to the 10-year-plus Hospital Church Morning Prayer Line. We have witnessed incredible miracles, such as people who were on the verge of death being healed, marriages being restored, children transformed, businesses flourishing, and relationships being rekindled. It's a great way to start your day. The prayer line is available every morning from Monday to Saturday, starting at 7 a.m. until 7:30 a.m. Simply dial 904-299-7241 to share your prayer request, and our devoted saints will begin praying for you. It's a powerful experience that can bring about positive change in your life.
Welcome to the Inspired Network mobile app. To get started, simply on your iPhone or iPad, open the App Store app. Then, touch the magnifying glass labeled Search Type, the Inspired Network, in the search bar and hit Return. Look for the app and tap the Get button to download it for free. Once the download is complete, open the app by double-clicking the side button. You can also tap the Open button after installation. To access the app in the future, simply tap the app's icon on your home screen and find the app's icon. Join us now on the Inspired Network and unlock a world of inspiration.
Hello, Queen. You know, someone once said life is 10% what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. Have you had some issues that you just maybe needed to discuss, or some things that you would want to share with someone but didn't have a place or a platform? The green room, the green room, the green room. The green room is that place where women come to share their ideas, their do's, their don'ts, their always, their nevers, their lessons learned. I'm inviting you to tune in every week to the green room. It's our place. The truth of the matter is, we all have greatness inside of us. You just need a little help to bring it out. It's me, Michelle G. Meet me in the green room.
Step into the vibrant world of the NAACP Community Voice podcast, where passion and conversation collide every Monday night at 8 o'clock. Imagine immersing yourself in the thought-provoking discussions on the Inspired Television Network, or tuning in effortlessly via Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, and our captivating social media platforms. Circle this date on your calendar as we invite you to embark on a journey of connection and empowerment. Together, let's dive into the heart of the matters that truly resonate with our community. Get ready to ignite your voice and make a difference.
And I want to invite you to come to visit our ministry. So I'm extending an invitation if you would come out and experience the fire and power of God in our midst. I promise you, your life will never be the same because of the manifestation of Almighty God in this place. Whatever it is you're dealing with, God will meet you at the point of your need. So I invite you to come and be a part of what God is doing here.
Are you ready to kickstart your own online show? Have you always dreamed of broadcasting to the world on Facebook? Well, Inspired Television Networks has an exciting offer just for podcasters like you. Imagine having your show recorded in our state-of-the-art studios and broadcasted to over 50 million homes worldwide. And the best part? It's available at an unbelievably low price of just $350. This is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So, join the revolution and become a part of our network today. Don't wait. Give us a call now because we're actively seeking new programs.
Sometimes in life, we may feel like we have lost a part of ourselves. Have you ever had moments where you wake up and wonder what happened to the person you used to be? Some things in life need to be lost, while others need to be rediscovered. You used to be a much kinder and more compassionate person, but somewhere along your journey, something within you broke. In this upcoming message series, Bishop Jackson will explore the principles of finding and regaining the parts of yourself that you have lost. We invite you to join us next Sunday for the start of the new message series called